Hello and welcome everyone to a special live Elektor Lab Talk where we meet the maker. I'm Brian Tristan Williams. Today we dive into the world of creativity and innovation with one of the masters of making, Max Imagination. How are you doing today, Max?
Hey Brian, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure being here speaking to everyone live. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Been a busy week for you?
Oh yes, very busy with projects. I just got another one out the line that's blowing up with views and already planning and working on the next one.
Awesome. So Max is known for his ability to take simple materials and turn them into something incredible. He combines his skills in electronics, mechanics, and design. Today, we're going to chat about the process behind this project, from the initial spark of an idea to the technical challenges of bringing it to life. Hopefully, I'll have time to ask him about the tools and techniques and technologies that make his creations possible. But whether you're a seasoned maker or a curious beginner or simply in love with the art of crafting something out of nothing, you're in for a treat. Now, before we start, we have a great giveaway for you later in the show. We have 6 Arduino Uno R4s to give away. 3 of them will be Arduino Minimas and 3 of them Wi-Fi. So stay tuned and we'll give you the code word later in the show and a link where you can go to enter the competition. So grab your notebooks and let's get ready to ignite our imaginations with insights from the brilliant mind behind Max Imagination. Max, I'm looking at your YouTube channel and it goes back like 8 years and you started off very young. How did you get started being so obsessed with making?
I've been into making practically my whole life since I was a small kid. So it starts and dates back to the age of 5, where on my 5th birthday, I was gifted a big box of Legos and surprise, surprise, a kid's electronics kit. And all this is symbolic to what I do now. I like to build with electronics. So these are just one of these basic kits. I'm sure many of you or some of you guys have at least heard of them or had them in your childhood. And from the electronics knowledge itself was way above my head at that time. So I was mostly into Legos, and all the way throughout, say, ages 5 to 8, I was just into building things for fun. This was before I was known as Max Imagination, and I would build all sorts of things. After Legos, I was more into Hot Wheels cars, building racing tracks, and those kind of tracks were made out of, I think, a third of a PVC pipe. So they were cut down, and I would race my collection of Hot Wheels cars. So as a kid, I was really into cars, and I was really amazed by the remote control cars. And I'll talk about later how I converted one into an FPV car. You will see that soon. And then from the tracks, I went on to making different things with cardboard. I made all sorts of costumes and different type of toy guns, and then I was into the marble trend. So I love making these marble tracks. I actually have a series of videos, a playlist on my channel where I would make these kind of marble tracks, race marbles down, and have competitions. I think you'll see that's me at 10 or 11 years of age on screen there, and that was from one of my older videos where I had this competition. So I raced down a whole bunch of marbles and add a bit of commentary. So that was a lot of fun. And from there, I discovered the fidget spinner trend. Actually, before I go on to that, I'll talk about the marshmallow air rifle there. I was into making these blow guns and slingshots and really anything that could shoot a projectile out. And from that trend, I went on to making all sorts of miscellaneous things like hang on a second, already spoke about the marble tracks. So, oh yeah, at 11 years of age, actually, this is when I found the fidget spinner trend. So I took that trend on early, making my own DIY fidget spinners from really anything I could find in my dad's workshop, the nuts and bolts and bearings. I would sit there every day assembling these things, these little fidget toys. I would also make things like stress balls and all that and sell these things to schools and kids individually. I would turn up to a school and I'd have a sellout of up to 20 fidget spinners in a day. And from home, I'd even have orders of up to 20, 30, and even 50 fidget spinners. So that was my first peak in my entrepreneurial journey back when I was 11. And from the fidget spinner trend, I even documented how I made these fidget spinners and posted them on my YouTube channel, which was the first time I actually got serious with my YouTube channel and began showing tutorials how to make these fidget spinners. And that's actually when my YouTube channel had its first little spike in popularity. That was a really fun trend. And from there, I got interested in remote control projects, remembering my childhood past with making all the cars and stuff. But before then, I'll actually mention the Levitron here on screen. This is one of the most popular video on my YouTube channel as of today, with over 1.9 million views. I got inspired by seeing some YouTube videos of different levitating objects, and I decided to make my own version of the Levitron and show other people how to make it. And surprisingly enough, I managed to help other people even graduate universities with this project. I helped them out through my Instagram DMs saying what to tweak, what to change, and other people succeeded making this too. So it's just a spinning top that uses magnetic propulsion to repel, and with the spinning rotation as it's a top, it just keeps itself stable. I'll show you right here. I won't be able to demonstrate it, but I actually still have a Levitron. There it is. So this thing uses a neodymium magnet, which is a very strong rare earth magnet. And when you spin this on an elevated surface, so you have a plate, a plastic board or something that goes on top, and you'd spin it, and then this thing would keep spinning, and as you pull the board out and off, it would stay spinning, levitating above this magnet over here, which is usually taken from the back of speakers. So that was one of my first projects that really changed the course of my channel in terms of popularity. But from the Levitron, I got more interested in remote control projects, which you'll see on screen right now. I made my first RC boat. This is my first remote control vehicle. It was something very basic I put together with a couple of Gatorade bottles, as you can see, a lot of paper, sticks, hot glue, and some old drone equipment. So it uses drone propellers at the back to propel it forward. And it used just basic drone electronics. So it was super simple for its age. It really didn't have any steering or anything. And some of my projects from the start were very simple. And I mean, as makers, we're going to suck at doing the thing the first time. So if it's your first time making, your project is probably not going to look as good as maybe 3 years down the track. But that was my first project, and that is what sent me on a direction of making remote control vehicles till this day.
Well, that's quite amazing and very inspirational, because I have a 10-year-old boy around me, and he looked at your channel and you started with reviewing some cat guns, and you've grown so phenomenally. So he's definitely keeping an eye on you, and he's into Lego and he's into Hot Wheels. So
Wow.
that's an inspiration for him. And from my point of view, I'm the type of guy who gets an inspiration at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you just cannot get parts at that time, and I don't want to wait 2 days. So what I liked looking at your videos was your ability to use whatever you have on hand, like from your grandma's sewing kit and so on and so forth. So when you get an idea, an inspiration, do you lie in bed at night and plan it all in your head, or do you just sit down with pen and paper and draw some sketches, or how's your process?
The way I get inspiration, well, it really started from looking at YouTube channels. So I would go on to various different YouTube channels online. I can't remember any names from the top of my head, but like the King of Random, actually, that's one. That was more for the science stuff. And I'd watch different ones like the Hacksmith with all those cool suits and stuff. And I'd get inspired by those kind of videos and other smaller channels first. Nowadays, I don't watch too much YouTube. I'm more of the one who produces content. But that was the start of coming up with these kind of ideas. And then eventually, like nowadays, I come up with ideas simply by, say, going on a walk, just giving myself some free time and space to think about how something can be done better. So I go out and think, how do I solve this problem? And the problem doesn't have to be, say, an invention for fixing something necessarily, or improving something, but I actually the intention to think, how can I make my thing different? And it's not only on walks. You can get ideas just from sitting down in a quiet space, grab a pen and paper after you've been inspired by something, and you'll get ideas in your head when you see and observe your environment. Say, you look around your wall. Okay, what can I make that climbs on walls, for instance? And okay, you can make a wall climbing car that sucks onto a wall. Just things like that. So you can get great ideas just by observing your environment. And that's something I do a lot of the time. And sometimes I even look at existing projects online straight away and think, how can I give my twist, my spin to that? And so with the line following robot, I'll show you right here a previous project of mine, which is already blowing up with over 50,000 views. You guys like that one? I took inspiration from the existing line following robots that were slightly larger, use those big yellow geared motors. And I thought, okay, those move a little slow, they're big. All right, how can I make that smaller? And then I put my mind to work on paper, designing a diagram. And yeah, and from there, I got the robot planned out with the way it should look, planned out what components I need and all that prior to getting the diagram. And that is how I come up with video ideas in general.
Well, you're certainly a master of many trades. I mean, I can make an assembly program on a microcontroller or an Arduino sketch, do anything I want to, given enough time. But mechanically, I'm useless. So I couldn't come up with half the ideas that you have going on mechanically. Just the way you move things with servos and motors. And how did you first learn to do that mechanical stuff?
Well, my main focus is learning and applying electronics, but I do delve into mechanical projects now and then. I study gear ratios, really the whole basics of making mechanical moving things, such as I'll just take my remote control car, for example, somewhere up there. I made that steering mechanism, I guess you guys can check out on YouTube, but I made a steering mechanism in my own way using a few gears and a self-centering thing. I just grabbed existing concepts and mechanical mechanisms and combine them together into something of my own. So I don't really study mechanical engineering as a discipline as itself, but I do take certain concepts that I see online and just play around with them, try to see if I can make them better and how I implement them into my projects. But electronics is my main field. That is what I study.
And you're quite into FPV, whether it be a drone or a paper airplane or even a Hot Wheel. That's pretty exciting, and you've inspired us. We've got the Hot Wheel ready. We've got an ESP32 cam. We'll see what we can do with that. Making a drone on your own. Yeah.
Here it is.
There we go.
That's my Hot Wheels car right there. So this, I made a video about a few months back. It's the FPV remote control Hot Wheels car. And if I pull the shell off, you'll see all of the electronic guts that make it work. My camera is not focusing at the moment, but you get the idea. It's got a microcontroller camera. It's an ESP32 based camera. And then it's got another ESP at the back that handles the controls, steering, and driving of the car, while this microcontroller with the camera streams video to a set of phone VR goggles converted to FPV goggles. So you're receiving feed to a phone and controlling it with another one in your hand.
Well, that's awesome, and a good choice in color. I mean, we've got the blue here, but got a sexy red Porsche there. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the FPV drone you made. That's pretty cool, because I have one of these, and having it's a DJI Mini 3 Pro. Yeah, but I've crashed it twice where it was basically had to be replaced, and now I'm scared to do anything funky or dangerous or skillful with it. It might make a lot more sense to do what you did and come up with your own drone concept and make a build from parts that you can put together. Let's have a look.
This is the one I assume you're referring to. I built this FPV drone based on a guide online. So I've seen how other people build their quads, as you call them, FPV drones. And then I looked on Amazon based on a friend's referral on the parts that I would need to buy, since this was my first time delving into the FPV hobby. Went on Amazon, purchased all the parts I needed. This is a 6S or 22 volt setup that makes the drone go up to a top speed of 120 kilometers per hour. This was a very fun build, made a video about it. You guys can check it out on my YouTube channel. And overall, a very fun drone. I made many videos before and filmed on beaches and stuff. So this thing is an absolute beast, not just a toy. And I've also
well, the
actually
great thing is,
repaired drones myself, like the drone you just held up, Brian. I have a
yeah,
Mavic Pro. Don't have it right now to show you guys, but I've actually crashed it myself a couple of times as well and managed to fix it. It's still up and going.
well done. I don't think I could fix this, but something that put together from parts like you did, I'd be much more keen knowing that even if I crashed it, every part is replaceable, and I know how to replace it based on guidance from you. I looked at your affiliate links in that video about the drone, but I didn't want to go one at a time through all the links to get the pricing. Do you have a rough idea of what a build like that costs?
In cost, the drone itself would be around $400 to assemble, not including the gear such as the transmitter and the FPV goggles, but added up with the most basic setup, you'd be paying somewhere minimum $600 for your FPV drone battery, transmitter, and goggles. So that's what I paid for my drone, $600, and I was up and flying.
Well, that's awesome. And like I said, that's not particularly cheap, but the fact of the matter is anything goes wrong, you can replace any part. I'm just looking at a comment here from Baltic Lab. I think Brian's remark of being mechanically useless is relatable for many of us electrical engineers. It certainly is for me. Yeah, well, when I was a kid, I got my first computer and I learned how to program in BASIC, but we couldn't do anything physical with them. They weren't microcontrollers, so we couldn't make anything move. We used to dream of having a robot arm on the desktop, but nowadays that's all possible. So many tools and tips. And what are some essential tools or pieces of equipment that you believe every DIY enthusiast should have in a workshop?
Sure, I'll tell you what type of pieces of equipment you need as a maker. I'll first go into the equipment you would probably need around your workbench for safety reasons and the use of safety. You need one of these for sure. So protect your health. Get yourself one of these solder fume extractors. That way you're not sucking up the fumes of the toxic lead or tin, as you call it. And I would
Now
also
you tell
recommend
me.
an electronic ESD, one of these wrist straps. So it's one of those straps that goes on your arm because when you're dealing with electronics, okay, one thing is protecting yourself, but you got to be, as an electronics maker, you got to be aware of that you can actually zap components electrostatically. So an ESD wrist strap takes away the electrostatic discharge and drains it to ground. And in terms of other tools that are essential as a maker, just your basic tools like needle nose pliers, wire strippers, super handy tool, saves time. Not only does it strip a wire instantly, it also cuts wires to the right desired length. And get yourself a wire stripper, it'll save you time. And as well as a lab bench power supply. Now, this thing I actually built on my own. I'm not able to bring it closer, but you can check out a video on my channel where I built this lab bench power supply in my own way. So it even got a battery charger, a lithium cell charger on the side, adjustable voltage, current limit, and all that. Having a power supply is essential when you're dealing with circuits. So as a maker, those are probably the most important parts. Of course, get yourself some power tools. I recently just got a Dremel toolkit, a rotary tool for cutting, engraving, sanding different bits and pieces. That's another very good tool to have. And of course, your soldering iron. It's essential. Get yourself one of these adjustable temperature electronic soldering irons. It's just $100, but it'll last you years. And this one I got from Miniware. It's a TS101 soldering iron. It heats up super fast, and you never have to go out buying new tips because they corrode. This thing turns on itself when you forget to turn it off after you finish the project. That's just a bad habit of mine with those cheap soldering irons, and then they overheat, and many of them would end up breaking and stop working. Having one of these is truly key. So as the tools, those are the essential tools I would advise any maker to have.
Well, I'm happy to say that I have most of those. The fume extractor, not yet. Maybe it's too late for me to protect my health, but I'll have to get onto that. And that's the tools. What about the materials? How do you select materials for your projects? I mean, I've tried to do mechanical things with like popsicle sticks, and I've seen you use that technique, but you go from that to buttons to 3D printing. How do you make your selection?
when it comes to choosing the materials for your project, I recommend first off, get yourself a 3D printer. If you have a spare $200 to $300, they're getting cheaper nowadays, and getting the right quality filament is also very important, because if you can 3D print something for your projects, a structure, a case, anything that will keep it together or create the mechanisms for it, you're going to be saving yourself a lot of time, not having to deal with making things from popsicle sticks or PVC, which I see a lot of guys do on a budget. There's no problem with that. But with 3D printer, you'd be saving so much time, and you'll be able to make a lot more intricate things, parts and pieces. And in terms of the components, which are also considered materials, I would recommend going on sites like VF Robot, actually sponsors of mine, or any other site online, such as Amazon. Amazon has a great selection of different components that you can find for your projects.
Oh, that's great. And how long have you been 3D printing? How
I've been
many
3D
years have you
printing
had
for
one of them?
only around 6 months. 6 or 7 months ago, I
6
got my
months.
3D printer. The Creality
Wow. So
Ender
did you find that
332, recommended. Sorry?
that was going to be my question, which 3D printer? And did you find that to be a game changer?
Well, absolutely. Choosing your 3D printer is vital, because you don't want to get an off-brand that has parts which are not even available to buy purchased separately. So get yourself a 3D printer from a well-known brand. I heard of the new Bamboo Lab printers. Not sure if they're new or old, but that's a good series of new printers. But I still highly recommend, as a maker, that you buy a Creality Ender printer. One of the Ender series are great printers, or really just any Creality printer in general, as they have a lot of parts sold separately. So if something breaks, so a belt snapped, or I need a new tensioner wheel, you can just buy that online. And yeah, so it's very important that you choose a reputable brand for the printer.
Cool. And is Creality one of your sponsors?
They reached out to me once, but I didn't have an available project yet to put them in. However, I have not worked with them yet, so they're not my sponsors.
Okay, well, I was going to say you make a great case for them, and I'm inclined to believe you, having seen some of the stuff you put together. So that's one thing I don't have either, is a 3D printer, besides the solder fume extractor. Just looking at some of the comments here, Ash's Workshop says, yeah, FPV is awesome.
Oh,
And
hey,
Andre says, I made your FPV car and I won the robotics competition. So well done to you, Andre. And
wow, congratulations.
thanks
That
to
is cool.
Max Imagination. Now, you're making a lot of YouTube videos. Do you still have time to keep up to date on the latest trends and actually watch YouTube videos, or how do you keep up with what's happening and new ideas and tools and projects?
Well, the way I keep up with what's going on in the maker community or industry itself is in between projects, when I'm not on the grind, as you say, working on things. That is the time block I set aside for coming up with ideas. So that's right, I go into YouTube and look for videos from other fellow makers, maybe the ones I'm closely in contact with, or just other ones in general, bigger YouTube channels, and look at the way they make things, and I look at going to different forums, different articles, blogs, and see what's new. I get email newsletters from Arduino and Elektor, you guys, and check out what's new. So yeah, between projects, that's the time I see what's hot and what's happening in the maker community.
Well, that's awesome. And in terms of programming, what is your favorite language? Do you like Arduino sketches or Python on the Raspberry Pi, or how do you approach it?
Well, in terms of programming, I started learning what I consider the most difficult language, C++. But as a maker, I think it's essential you learn a programming language such as the Arduino one, because it's very user-friendly, the Arduino interface anyway. And if you learn that C++, any other language that is below it, let's say, in terms of level, will be so much easier to learn. And I use C++ or C with Arduino for any of my projects that involve an Arduino board, ESP32, or any form of microcontroller.
Yeah, starting off with assembly back in the day on microcontrollers, it wasn't as easy as having an Arduino IDE, but moving up from assembly, I found C was pretty straightforward once you knew assembly. So talking to the chip directly, and that's advantageous as well, even in the Arduino IDE, because you can just drop in some direct C commands to set registers directly. If you're in a hurry, you need to run the code pretty quickly. Let's have a look at some of the questions here. Here's one from Jack. What about AI? Are you working any electronics plus AI projects in the works? I see you did use some AI in some of your FPV stuff.
In my FPV stuff, which one do you refer to?
I think you had a board that had AI capabilities, probably one of the ESP
Oh,
boards.
the Xiao. That's right. So this Hot Wheels car used the Xiao ESP32S3. Now that one has AI capabilities. However, I have not yet made any projects that use AI itself or machine learning to observe their surroundings and calculate things and take actions based on the machine's operation and all that. But I am thinking of doing something like that in the future. Perhaps maybe take the Hot Wheels car to the next level, add some more sensors, and actually equip the camera with machine learning capabilities, maybe. But overall, I would for FPV prefer a camera with better latency, so I may make the next one with a standard little FPV camera. But for robotics in general, I would give AI a go for sure.
Yeah, well, AI has just exploded currently. It's like taken 50 years to become an overnight revolution all of a sudden. Question from Baltic Lab again. Aside from a 3D printer, what is the single most important mechanical machine you'd recommend to get, like a lathe, a CNC router, laser cutter, etc.? I have the Dremel, but what's your favorite?
Well, I've only, out of those machines, aside from those, I've only played around with a 3D printer. I have not tested CNC, laser cutter, or any of those machines. But I believe a CNC or lathe would be the second most handy machine to have at your disposal. I'm sure they're expensive. They're huge to have in your workshop. But if you can craft different mechanical parts that would otherwise be expensive and would take a long time to arrive from, say, China, you can just make them at home in a day or however long it takes. And that would be very cool, actually, having a CNC machine as a maker personally is the one I would probably recommend after a printer.
Okay, so printer first for me, and that's a CNC next for you, Baltic Lab. I'm assuming you have a 3D printer already, Baltic. I just want to remind you, I'm seeing the questions come in the chat here. Now, we're not just live on one platform. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, but we're seeing your questions come in. So please drop any questions you have in the chat. And I just want to return to our giveaway. As I said to you in the beginning, we're giving away 6 Arduino Uno R4s. That's 3 Minimas and 3 Wi-Fi's. And you just have to visit our website to join the giveaway. And the code word that you use today is quite simple. It's MAX. There's the link for you. elektor-magazine.com/elektor-lab-talk/giveaway. And yeah, the keyword's MAX because it's much easier to spell than imagination. Now, Max, what future exciting projects are you working on? Is there anything you can share with us?
Sure. I'll share you one project of mine that I'm working on, which will come out maybe in a month, maybe 2. It is quite a difficult one, in fact, but I took on the challenge of making what's probably the tiniest Arduino FPV drone. You guys know it. I like making miniature things, so I'm challenging myself to make a drone that uses an Arduino board, four tiny little coreless motors, and one of those standard 5.8 gigahertz FPV first-person view cameras that would stream to a set of goggles of mine that probably came from this drone, so I would use its goggles, and that's the drone itself. So I'll probably 3D print the overall base, the chassis of the drone, and assemble the components from there. I probably need to create a prototype, but by far, I've received the components for that, and I'm already putting my plan into action with that project as my next one. It's been highly requested by many people in the comments of my videos, actually, so that's where I got the idea or inspiration overall to make that specific project.
That's great. And you're using 3D printing a lot for for a neophyte like me, do the different filaments have different weights, considering that you've got to think about weight when you're flying the thing?
Yeah, I'll take that into consideration. But overall, I find PLA already a light material. It's light enough. I even got a paper airplane modified to be remote controlled and all that with its own 3D printed chassis up there. I'm not able to get it connected with wires, but you can see that if you watch one of my previous videos where I made the plane, you see that it uses a 3D printed chassis, which is only 5 grams, happens to be. So I would probably aim for using the same material. PLA is good for prototyping, maybe not for the longevity of lasting out in with the weather conditions, but overall PLA is a good material for anything that flies, aircrafts.
Yeah. And when you're doing something like that, I mean, obviously, FPV drone is going to have a lot of code. Are you doing a lot of programming that yourself, or do you get a lot of code like from GitHub and that sort of thing?
In terms of my level of programming, I'm a lot better in electronics, have a deeper understanding than with programming. But you guys can consider me a beginner programmer, so I can write basic programming code for robots and stuff, very basic robots like those little geared motor robots to do very simple things and match it up with different libraries to control them at the most. But for things that require different tilt sensing and other variables that would need to be taken into consideration, especially for a drone. There's nothing simple with drones, so I'll be taking code from GitHub. There's one maker in the space who's built a bigger Arduino FPV drone, and what I'll be doing is taking his open source code and making a much smaller one.
Yeah, paring it down.
Mhm.
How do you find squeezing all that onto little chips? That must be quite a hefty code base.
Sorry, you mean in general that mapping code for a bigger one or a smaller one? You're saying the
No, I mean the amount of code that is needed for the intelligence behind something like an FPV drone.
well,
Do you
I
find
haven't
that?
delved. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I was asking if you find that difficult to fit into smaller chips, if you find that you have to reach out for chips with more flash memory or more RAM, anything like that.
Well, I generally look at the size of the code and I try to find the smallest chip possible. Say if I work on a small project like a mini FPV drone and see, okay, this one uses a Arduino, it's an Arduino Leonardo compatible board. All right, so what's the overall RAM? How much code it could fit on that? And I look at that based on the bytes of the code I'm going to program and see if it's a fit. If not, okay, I go for something a bit larger.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And it's good that chips lately are coming with more and more flash, more and more memory. I remember back in the day, that could have been a challenge, especially for a more complicated project. I just want to bring up a comment here from Dom Conti, who says, cool to see how just following your interests and diving into tech can lead to an interesting career, creating neat content online. Max, we lost you there for a second. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm back.
Okay,
Cool
cool.
to see how just, sorry, I did not see the comment there.
It's just cool to see how just following your interests and diving into tech can lead to an interesting career, creating neat content online. And I agree.
Yeah, I believe it is incredible. It's a great feeling converting your passion for something that can serve you for life and carry you financially and all that. It's a great thing to be immersed in something that you love doing and benefiting others in the process while being benefited in return yourself. And yeah, I really see no reason to stop doing this. I believe it's going to be a lifelong journey.
And it's something you're passionate about. Earlier, you spoke about going for long walks and coming up with ideas. Now, if it's something you're passionate about, it's something you will think about. Whereas,
Absolutely.
if it's drudgery, you just log off on Friday afternoon and you don't think again until Monday. So it's great to have something that you're passionate about that still pays the bills. Another question from Dom here. Is there a certain area of electronics that Max gravitates toward?
Well, if you look at the subdiscipline of electricity, which is electronics, and see that there's audio electronics, communication electronics, and power electronics, I probably gravitate more towards power electronics, since that's what powers all these devices and circuits that I make. So I have a deeper understanding in power electronics.
Well, that's good as well. I mean, it can't just be mechanics.
Mhm.
Question from Kienkia on Instagram. I'm not sure I understand the question, but clearing mechanical concept, is it important? Is FreeCAD helpful?
FreeCAD, I haven't delved into checking that one out, but I do recommend that you try out the CAD program that I use, Autodesk Fusion 360. It's a great program. It's got many different presets. Say if you need a gear or you need to create some kind of mechanism, they have different presets available for those kind of parts, as well as you can design literally anything. It's a program I picked up with speed, and if there's anything mechanical you need designed or inspected, Fusion 360 is a great program to use. And in fact, I design my 3D designs, which I print into models with Fusion 360.
Autodesk, it sounds expensive though.
It is. It's certainly a program worth trying.
Question from Andre. What do you use to program your boards? So I'm guessing all kinds of different things, from plugging an Arduino in directly via USB to using FTDI to JTAG. Tell us about some of those.
Yeah, so with ESP boards, I would use an FTDI. I'm a big fan of the ESP32 CAM and those development boards. I use an FTDI, serial to USB converter. I've delved into different types of converters too. And yeah, oh, there you got an ESP32 CAM. Yeah, so it's one of my favorite boards. And just for our regular Arduino boards, yeah, you plug it in with a cable and program it with the Arduino IDE. As simple as that.
Yeah, the Arduino IDE, all of those libraries available, has really made it a lot easier to program these things. I remember PIC microcontrollers with their separate programmers, like the PIC ICD2. It's so nice nowadays that you can just plug and play almost.
Oh, it's become really simplified over the years. Absolutely.
I'm going to give Andre another chance to ask a question. He wants to know about your PC. What's your PC spec?
Well, the PC I have, in fact, is one I built with parts I ordered online. Once again, I love building things. And the PC specs, I don't remember all of them, but it's a one of those, what do you call it? It uses an Intel iCore 5, I believe, 10400F, and uses a really fast GPU. I forgot the name, the graphics processing unit. And the brand itself is MSI, taking after the motherboard that is within the computer. I actually have a video on that, and if you'd like to explore the specs further, Andre, you can check that out on my channel.
And then from Mega Techno, what camera do you use? Now, I'm not sure if that means what camera you're using right now, your DSLR, or what you're using on your various FPV projects.
I assume Mega Techno YT that you're referring to the camera I use for filming my videos in general. My intros, the process of actually building something, I use a DSLR camera, which is a Canon EOS 7D. It's an old camera, but it still films very good quality 1080p video for whatever your need is.
And how much of this, when you do a YouTube production, how much of it can you do alone, and how much help do you need carrying the camera around and having a family member as a camera person? Because
I do everything
running into that
myself.
challenge.
I do everything myself, apart from a few things my mom and parents help me with. But I just set up a tripod with the DSLR camera in certain positions. If you notice in my videos, it's not moving around too much. Earlier in the days, I had a family member filming me because I didn't understand cameras so much. But since I have a bigger understanding in videography now, lighting, etc., I film all my projects myself and set up the angles that I need for the set.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, you've got so many cool projects. I'm just looking at coming in on the chat now. You've got a section on our Elektor Labs platform where you've put some of your projects.
Okay.
People, you can see that in the chat. So that's elektormagazine.com/labs/208799, arbitrary number, /max-imagination. Question from Miro Pro. Do you have any tips? I'm working on a camera drone that I registered for your contest.
Any tips? Well, in terms of building a drone, anything that flies, keep in mind keeping things to a minimum weight. So if you're using, I assume, a Xiao ESP32 Sense camera like I used in this one, or any camera, just choose one with an image sensor that's as small as possible, a board that's sized down as small as possible. Once again, as we were talking with Brian about choosing filament materials, PLA is fine, and try to design your aircraft with structural beams and parts that are as thin as possible. You can do that if you're the one who designed that design in the program. And yeah, really just keeping everything to a minimum and use surface-mounted components if you're making custom motor drivers and all of that to keep things flat. And of course, if you're using a lot of components, have them on a PCB. You can order those PCBs based on your designs from third-party services. There's many online from China. And that's what I recommend for keeping the weight down when making an aircraft.
I hope that answers your question, Miro. I think this goes to what we were talking about when I said Autodesk sounds expensive. Fusion 360, get what you pay for, says James. And then from Velepu, this is a good tip for those of you who are students. He says, but Autodesk is free for 1 year for students. So that could be useful to some of you.
Yeah, for a year, you get it for free. And that's how I started using it. And I'm still going. So yeah, have it for free, try it. And if you like it, you can purchase the plans they have. And I believe if you are a full-time maker, it's more viable investing in something like that. Like I've invested in video editing programs and stuff, but if you're doing something one time, use a free program like FreeCAD or any of the others that were mentioned before.
Cool. And I see a comment here from Patrick. Let me just bring that up. We have the Creality Ender 3S1 3D printer for sale on the Elektor store. So that should be my first go-to for my 3D printer. Just as a reminder, we've got that giveaway. We're giving away 3 Arduino Uno R4 Minimas and 3 Arduino R4 Wi-Fi. That's the big one. And you just have to visit the link that you see on your screen. That's elektormagazine.com/elektor-labtalk-giveaway and use the keyword MAX. Let's see if we've got any more interesting questions. Will you make, this is Minecraft Boy, sorry. Will you make another RC car with steering?
Absolutely. RC cars, that's the kind of project, those are the type of projects I'm most interested in, aside from aircraft. And I do think I will delve into another project with steering. As I'm playing around with making cars of different sizes, I had a bigger one back here I made from PVC, had this tiny one, so I may go for something in between, perhaps even make a drift car. So I'll see on that. It'll certainly have steering.
Do you like fast cars? Do you watch F1 or NASCAR or anything like that?
I used to. I don't watch TV so much anymore, but yeah, F1 cars are really inspiring. As a kid, I watched Lightning McQueen. That was a huge inspiration behind cars and why I got in love with looking at cars, making them in general.
Well, question from Plenty of Content. Is an FPV setup available for $100? Depends what you're doing.
Well,
do you mean drone?
if you're talking about the type of drone I built here, you're not going to get anything too fast or serious or long lasting if you budget it. I don't recommend cheaping out on components that regard to projects that if they hit someone, they kill someone. So I'm saying that if you're going to operate a machine this big, anywhere around where people live, invest some more money into it. $150, $200 is the flat minimum, I believe, to get the motors that are decent enough, a battery that is of good quality. So it is possible to build a drone for $100, but I don't think you should expect to getting anything with premium quality boards.
Yeah, and there's also a weight consideration. Like you said, you don't want to kill someone. So this comes in at just under 250 grams because that's a legal limit in many jurisdictions. What does your drone weigh?
My drone here, it weighs about the same as a larger Mavic Pro. This one's around 750 to 800 grams. Depends on if it has a battery or not. But it's within that 600 to 800 gram range. So below a kilogram. It feels heavy, especially once it's got a GoPro camera at the front.
And you said you only had a 3D printer for like 6 months. Could you have built that without the 3D printed parts? Do they just add aesthetics or are they essential for your build?
Well, I didn't actually have a 3D printer back then when I built this drone. I happen to have a neighbor nearby who's also into electronics. How convenient is that? I went and used his printer to print out different pieces that protect the frame of the drone, that case and hold the camera and things like that. And I absolutely think it's essential having a 3D printer if you're going to be building these kind of drones, or at least to hire out third-party services that can do it for you.
Well, now I definitely want a 3D printer. You are messing up with my budget here, Mr. Max. Question from Seba. You recommend the HOTRC brand transmitters and receivers? They're the only ones Seba has.
Receivers and transmitters. Well, it depends on which one you're referring to. I never heard of that brand, but there are many online you can get if you're looking for ones that are not Arduino based and require microcontroller receiver setup, and you're just looking for basic ones. I don't have a specific brand to recommend, but just the standard factory made ones with multiple pins, headers, and those gun style transmitters if it's for a car, or get yourself a more quality transmitter, say for drones, like this one, just around $100. It really depends on what you're building.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that brand either, but I did Google it. They look okay. But question from me is, I've never done the FPV goggles. I've always used the remote control with the drone. How was that for you the first time? Did you get any motion sickness? Was it a bit weird to fly around in almost 3D, but 2D?
I've heard friends that get have talked to people that get motion sick from flying these FPV drones, but I'm not one that easily gets motion sick. So from using my FPV drone with its set of goggles, I've had it fine. I mean, I don't feel in any form of way queasy, as you say, after flying with one. It's just a lot of fun in general. So it's for some it does not go so well and they get dizzy, but I think for most people it's fine.
Okay, well, yeah, that's something I haven't tried before, but would like to. I've tried those AR goggles and VR goggles, and it wasn't a problem for me, but some people do complain. Back onto the subject of Autodesk. That's the wrong question. The question was, which one is better for beginners? Is it AutoCAD or Fusion 360? Have you tried both?
I have not tried AutoCAD. I haven't actually even looked into it, but even for beginners, Fusion 360 is great. It's user-friendly once you have gone through a video course. So I watched a video course I paid for on a platform learning about Fusion 360, and I learned it quick. There has never been anything I learned that quick. And usually, well, you learn things quick that you enjoy doing the most. So I love 3D designing in general, and Fusion 360 is user-friendly. Once you understand all the tools, and designing things is super simple. So I would recommend Fusion 360 any day.
Ah, that's awesome. Fusion 360. AutoCAD used to be the go-to back in the day as well. I'm looking at the questions here. I'm not seeing much new coming in, but I'd like to ask you a question, not about what you are building, but is there like a dream project that you're working on towards, like advanced technologies or engineering challenges that you maybe haven't tackled but would like to?
I would, and there are quite a number I have in mind and I've written down. I'm thinking of perhaps one day building maybe a robot dog or one of those early Boston Dynamics robots. So another channel, a company I'm hugely inspired by, are the robots that are made by Boston Dynamics that walk, bounce, skip, or whatever. But some of their earlier robots have really inspired me, and have planted a seed in my head to actually build something similar with more basic concepts. So back when they had the 6-legged Robo Hopper, which they discontinued, super cool robot. It's got at least 10 million views or something. And that was posted many years ago, but I'm thinking of building a robot, something like that, with an FPV camera, perhaps, something I can navigate for hundreds of meters down my street or out in the wild somewhere. And that's a dream project. And a bigger dream project, sort of Elon Musk level, is building a big manned quadcopter that I can steer, perhaps one with wings, so you don't crash or anything. But one of those VTOL or drone plane hybrids, one of those vertical takeoff and landing aircrafts, that is super inspiring. I've seen one of those manned drones that have no wings, but that scares the crap out of me. I wouldn't rely on a battery up in the air. I mean, we've heard all the incidents with the Teslas and stuff. That's bad enough with a car, but if you're in the air and you go down, there's nothing saving you. Parachutes, that's a joke. So I would have an aircraft. That's my dream project anyway, making a drone with wings. So a manned VTOL.
Yeah, so you can glide when things go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if ever you come right with that, somebody's going to end up trying to buy you out. So that bodes well for your budget, although speaking to you is boding bad for my budget, because I want to build that drone. I want that 3D printer. I want all of those toys. But I think I'll start off with the solder fume extractor. Anyway, Max, I think start small, just like you did. I mean, anybody out there, go take a look at Max's channel, Max Imagination. Just search for it on YouTube or Instagram. Click on videos and scroll down to the bottom. You'll see Max's very first video. Now, that was starting small, and look where he is now. You're up at like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and almost that on Instagram. Yeah, there's a link. Thanks, Elektor team, for helping me out with the link. youtube.com/c/maximagination. Max, I think we're running up against our...
And enjoy those videos.
Yeah, you can spend a weekend on that, guys. Just check it out. Go to videos. You could start at the bottom or you can start at the top. Either way, it's entertaining. Max, I just want to thank you for joining us. As I said, we're running up against our time. We've looked at most of the questions and comments. So thank you, Max, for joining us. And you've certainly been an inspiration and taught me a lot, even during this webinar, during this live stream.
Well, it was a real pleasure speaking with you and presenting my ideas and past to everyone out there. So, really nice talking to you, Brian, and I hope to have more lives like these in the near future.
Well, thanks for joining us, Max, and making me go and spend some money. For the viewers here, if you want more like this, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and you'll be kept up to date with anything new that's coming up. We will have, for example, another lab talk in a month, but we have a lot of other videos and cool things going on, just like Max does. And so join us for that. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here at Elektor Lab Talk, where we got to meet the maker, Mr. Max Imagination himself. Also go to his channel and subscribe and like over there. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you another time on our next Lab Talk.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.